Time Flight, the 7th and final serial of Doctor Who's 19th season, first broadcast in 4 parts from the 22nd to the 30th of March 1982. Now, supposedly this was originally a 4th Doctor story, but it kept getting pushed back, and eventually they reworked it as a 5th Doctor story. The 5th Doctor, played by Peter Davison, as well as his 2 companions, Nyssa and Tegan, they have recently witnessed the death of companion Adric, and are understandably a little bit devastated by the events. Now, to at least try and make them all cheer up a little bit, the Doctor offers to take them to the opening of the Great Exhibition. However, they end up instead at Heathrow Airport in the 1980s. And while there, they find out that Concorde has seemingly gone missing. Like, it was flying, it was due to land at Heathrow Airport, but it seemingly disappeared in the sky and disappeared off the radars, and they've no idea where it is. So the Doctor, played by Peter Davison, and his 2 companions Nyssa, played by Sarah Sutton, and Tegan Jovanka, played by Janet Fielding, they have to make a plan to find out what happened to Concorde and try and find out where it's gone and if they can get it back. They're assisted in their adventure by the pilot, or latest pilot of Concorde, Captain Stapley, played by Richard Easton, flight engineer Roger Scobie, played by Keith Drinkle, and First Officer Andrew Bilton, played by Michael Cashman. They eventually managed to fly another plane through the same spot that Concorde vanished, where they find themselves actually 140 million years ago. And while the first thing that they've landed at Heathrow Airport, just because it seems that way, and they have a mirage and it seems like they're at Heathrow, they eventually manage to focus their minds and find out that they are in some kind of desolate wasteland, which is 140 million years ago. They eventually manage to find the passengers, including a Professor Hayter, played by Nigel Stock, and find that they have all been placed under some kind of hypnotic spell. And it's a race to try and free the passengers and try and get them back to Heathrow Airport in the 1980s. Now, this was one of the infamous stories that I remember hearing was very bad. I mean, I think even Peter Davison himself ended up saying this was one of his least favourites, purely because of the creatures, the plasmatons, which he really didn't like. But here's the thing why I've heard about it. Supposedly, this was the last serial in the 19th season, which it is, and by this point they were on very little budget, and after managing to hire Concorde for the story, they had very little money, so they made the plasmatons out of some foam. And I will admit, some of the effects in the episode, especially involving them, are a little dodgy, to say the least. Especially, there's another kind of bodiless alien race is also involved in the episode that briefly ends up taking over the Doctor and Nyssa to try and give them warnings. And it's very clear that when the Doctor and Nyssa go into trances, that they're using stock footage of Bubbles, or Bubble Bath, and it is laughably bad. But here's the thing, I think it's in fitting with Doctor Who in the 1980s at the time. And Doctor Who often has, while it does go big with some effects, it can also go low budget, and in this case I do actually think it works. I only really have 2 problems with this story. I mean, one was the plasmatons, which, yeah, I'll agree with Peter Davison, they are a little lackluster, for lack of a better word, but my other problem is this. It's eventually revealed that this is all a plan by the Doctor's old nemesis, the Master, played by Anthony Ainley. He, who has briefly disguised himself as an alien being named Khalid, and then basically he managed to escape from the trap in Castrovalva, which was the last time he appeared, and his TARDIS was damaged, and he wants to use pieces found in this alien civilization to repair his TARDIS and gain ultimate power. Now, here's the thing. When Anthony Ainley is out of his prosthetic, he ends up removing his removing the Khalid identity at the end of Part 2, and then for Part 3 and Part 4, he is still in his traditional Anthony Ainley Master getup. And for there, he's fine. He's brilliant. He still provides that master charm and deviousness. He's great there. My problem is with his Khalid performance, because I remember watching him as Khalid and seeing all those kind of little mannerisms and sounds he was doing, and just the way he played it, I was sat there watching and thinking that this has to be offensive to someone. Like I'm sorry, I don't even know who it would be offensive to, but just the way he was doing it, it just seemed like very stereotypical of some type of thing, and I just remember sitting there and thinking, there's no way that somebody can't be offended by this. Just, I'm sure he was doing the best he could with the script he was given and the direction he was given, but it was just like, whenever he was in his Khalid thing and not talking with someone normally, just kind of making these noises and these mannerisms, and I was just like, please stop, please, just please stop. So, yeah, I don't blame Anthony Ainley for that. I mean, this was the 1980s, so you could get away with a lot of stuff back then, but I imagine if they did rewrote the story and did Khalid nowadays, that performance wouldn't fly. Just they wouldn't. They would have the master there start to finish, but Khalid just wouldn't fly today. So, as I said, this was a story that I heard was particularly very bad, but watching it through, as I said, the only real two problems I had were the Plasmatons and Anthony Ainley's Khalid performance. But aside from that, I actually thought it was fine. I mean, they managed to do a lot of good stuff with it. I mean, as I said, it's low budget, but in my opinion, it works. They also did bring back Adrek, played once again by Matthew Waterhouse briefly, because apparently his contract did extend into this story, despite being killed off in Earthshock. But they actually do manage to fit him in here, which is when Nyssa and Tegan go kind of looking through the centre of the city to try and find the power source, there's a load of hallucinations that kind of pop up to prevent them from going any further, and one of them is of Adrek. But they've been told that if they face something they believe is a hallucination, focus on something they know is real, something they can put their faith in. And they both end up having faith that Adrek is dead, that Adrek died, and that if he was still alive, he would want them to go on. So therefore they're able to dismiss it. So I know that Matthew Waterhouse wasn't exactly top of anyone's fan list by the end of it, but I think they use him well here. They don't drag out his welcome. He's there for a few moments, and then suddenly he's gone. But I will admit Time Flight isn't the greatest story in Doctor Who's history, but for the amount of flack I heard that people were giving it, I actually thought it was decent. It wasn't terrible. I mean, Doctor Who, it has its high moments, it has its low moments. People saying this was very low, I personally think it's around about the middle. I think it's alright. So, for the amount of flack people were giving it, I give Time Flight a pass. Not a high grade, but yeah, you know what, I'd say it's worth watching at least once. There you go, there's my quick thoughts on Time Flight. Will my next classic story be? Well, that remains to be seen. Anyway, until next time, see ya.